Welcome to Nerdy Psychology, where your mind's not as messy as it seems. We break it down with a little curiosity and make sense of your thoughts and your themes. So be curious, stay kind, keep your mind nerdy.
Here's a question I want you to sit with for a second. When was the last time someone actually asked you how you were doing, and then they waited for you to answer? Because according to the American Psychological Association's 2025 Stress in America report, nearly 7 out of 10 Americans said they need more emotional support this last year than they actually received. And that's not a vague feeling. That's data from over 3,000 adults collected by the Harris poll. And the title of this year's report, A Crisis of Connection. So today, we're going to go nerdy on loneliness, division, and what the science says we can actually do about it. Because this data isn't just interesting, it's about you. It might be even about your body right now, and you don't even know it yet. So stay with me. Every year, the APA surveys thousands of American adults to take in this country's psychological pulse. Think of it as a national stress check-in, the kind your doctor probably doesn't have time to do, but your therapist absolutely should. The 2025 report surveyed 3,199 adults ages 18 and up, nationally representative. This year's findings were clustered around two big themes that just kept showing up together, like this unhappy duo: societal division and loneliness. Now, I know those words might feel a little abstract, so let's make them concrete. Here's what the data actually found. 62% of Americans say that division in our society is a significant source of stress in their lives. 54% say they often or sometimes feel isolated from others. 50% feel left out. Half of all adults feel left out. 50% say they lack companionship. And that 69% figure I mentioned, nearly 7 in 10 people needing more emotional support than they got, that's up from the year before. So basically, we are trending in the wrong direction. But here's where it gets really interesting from a clinical standpoint. These two things, division and loneliness, aren't just co-occurring by coincidence. The data suggests they're actually feeding each other. Here's the nerdy part I want you to really hear. Among adults who identified societal division as a major stressor, 61% reported feeling isolated, compared to just 43% of those who didn't flag division as a stressor. That's an 18-point gap. And in research terms, that's not noise, that's a signal. What does that tell us? It suggests that when we live in a world that feels fractured, politically, socially, culturally, something happens to our internal sense of belonging too. We start pulling inward, we cancel plans, we lose patience, we stop reaching out. In fact, people who were stressed by societal division were 60% more likely to lose patience with family members. 55% said they'd canceled plans. 53% said they struggle to plan for the future. This is what psychologists call stress spillover, when external stressors bleed into your most intimate relationships and your sense of agency. The world feels out of control, so you unconsciously contract. You protect yourself by disconnecting, and the tragic irony is disconnection makes everything worse. And here's where it gets physical, and I mean literally physical. Among adults reporting high loneliness, 94% experienced at least one physical symptom of stress in the past month. 94%. And those symptoms included Sadness and depression, with 65% of adults reporting that. Nervousness and anxiety, with 60% of adults reporting that. Fatigue had 53% reporting. Headaches had 48% reporting. Your loneliness isn't just emotional, it's literally showing up in your body. And if you've been wondering why you're tired all the time or why your headaches just won't quit, it might be worth asking, when did I actually feel connected to someone last? Okay, I want to talk about one finding in particular because I think it's being underreported and it matters enormously for understanding where we are culturally. 75% of adults say they're more stressed about the country's future than they used to be. 3/4 across all ages and backgrounds. But the number that stopped me cold, literally, is 63% of adults ages 18 to 34 said they have considered relocating to another country because of the state of the nation. More than half of parents, 53%, said the same thing. Now, I'm not here editorializing about whether that's a right call. That's not my lane. But clinically, what that number tells me is that a significant portion of younger adults and parents have moved past frustration into something that looks more like hopelessness about home. And hopelessness, we know, is one of the most psychologically destabilizing states a person can have. But here's the counterweight. The report also found, and I don't want to skip this because it matters, that 84% of adults still believe they could build a good life, even if it looks different than it did in past generations. And 73% felt confident they could help shape the country's future for the better. 65% reported feeling personally responsible for contributing to the future. So we have this fascinating psychological paradox. People are considered leaving the country and still holding on to a sense of purpose and agency. And that's not a contradiction. That's what it looks like to be human and holding grief and hope at the same time. The most common words Americans use to describe this country right now: freedom, corruption, opportunity, division, hope, fear, in that order. So here's where we get to the good stuff, because data without application is, well, just anxiety fuel. And that is absolutely not why we're here. The research on loneliness and social stress points to specific evidence-based directions. And here are 3 things that are backed up by science that you could start doing right now. Tool number 1, micro connections are not minor. We tend to think connections has to be this big, deep conversation, a night out with the friends, a long phone call. But research on social bonding consistently shows that brief, warm interactions produce real neurobiological effects. A genuine exchange with the barista, eye contact, and a real smile, asking how a coworker are doing. These micro connections activate the same social reward circuitry as deeper relationships do. They won't replace depth, but they create a connective tissue that buffers against isolation. So try this. Identify one person each day, someone you normally pass by, and make it a real moment. Not performative, but a real moment. Tool 2, name your division stress separately. We talk about naming what we're going through constantly on this channel because it is so powerful and so important. But one of the patterns in this data is that people are bundling everything together. The news, their relationships, their sense of the future. It's into one giant stress ball that makes it feel unmanageable. Well, because unmanageable is a huge unit. Cognitive differentiation, basically separating your stressors into distinct categories, has been shown to reduce the sense of overwhelm and increase our perception of control. So try this. When you feel that ambient low dread about the state of the world right now, write it down. Specifically label it. This is my division stress. This is separate from my relationship with my husband, my wife, my coworkers. We're not minimizing it. We're giving our nervous system something that it could actually work with. And tool 3, invest in the overlap. The report found that the most common sources of meaning for Americans right now are relationships. 53% listed spending time with loved ones as a future goal. And adults with lower loneliness scores were consistently more likely to have clear goals, to find purpose in those goals. And this is the clinician in me talking. Purpose is a protective factor, not a luxury, not a personality trait. It's a measurable buffer against psychological deterioration. So try this. Write down 3 answers to this question. What would I be doing differently if I felt genuinely connected? Then pick the smallest one, start there. Not because it's going to fix everything, but because meaning tends to grow from the direction you move, not the destination. And I'm going to say that again. Meaning tends to grow from the direction you move, not the destination. If this episode stirred something for you, if you're recognizing yourself in any of these numbers, your next chapter workbook was designed for exactly this kind of moment. It's a structured, clinician-developed tool to help you move through uncertainty with intention. The link is in the description if you're interested. And speaking of connection, I would like to formally invite you to be a part of this nerdy community where we talk about mental health that matters. Please hit the like and subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. Drop a comment and tell me which statistic surprised you the most. The 50%, the 63%, the one about headaches. And if someone in your life needs to hear this, share it. That's a micro connection too. The APA titled this report, A Crisis of Connection. And I think that framing is important. A crisis isn't the end of the story. Crises get named so that they can get addressed. You're not broken because you feel lonely in a country that it's arguing with itself. You're having a normal response to an abnormal level of disconnection. And the data says you're not alone in that, which honestly is the most ironic comfort I've delivered. If you're interested in reading the full article, the link is in the description below. Until next time, be curious, stay kind, and keep your mind nerdy. That's a wrap. See you next week.
So be curious, stay kind, keep your mind